Welcome to the 26th episode of the Bad Feeling Magazine podcast. Our guest this episode is Radiohead drummer Philip Selway. Philip released his first solo LP, Familial, back in 2011, and just released its excellent follow-up, Weatherhouse, earlier this year. I had a chance to speak with Philip about the growth between his two solo records, how his solo career differs from his work with Radiohead, and his thoughts on how music is distributed today. As a Radiohead fan for over 20 years, it was a real pleasure to get to do this interview. We couldn't cover everything I would have liked to in the limited time we had, but we do get a nice glimpse into Philip's writing and recording process, which fans should really enjoy. Philip's just about to embark on a small North American tour, including a stop at Montreal's Osheaga Festival on August 2nd. He'll also be at Toronto's Mod Club on August 4th. For more info and tickets, you can visit philipselway.com. You can keep up to date with us at badfeelingmag.com, where you'll also find our latest interviews, photos, and reviews. You can also follow us at facebook.com/badfeelingmag, and we're at badfeelingmag on Twitter. All back episodes of the podcast are available on iTunes, where you can also subscribe and rate the show. If you missed them, you can check out back episodes featuring interviews with Johnny Marr, Eugene Kelly of the Vaselines, Andrew White of Kaiser Chiefs, and many more. Thanks once again for listening. Now let's get to my chat with Philip Selway.
Lovely, thank you. Hi, Gabe.
Hi, Philip. How are you?
I'm really well, thanks. And yourself?
I'm doing great. Where am I reaching you today?
So I'm at home, back in just outside Oxford in the UK.
Okay. And your tour begins, is it next week? Are you doing any kind of rehearsals right now?
Well, but rehearsing today,
okay.
And then fly out on Wednesday. And so we start off in Chicago for Lollapalooza, then and come up into Canada.
Yeah, it's exciting. You haven't been here for quite some time.
Well, in fact, I haven't actually in my own right, especially doing my solo shows. I've never been to Canada.
That's true.
So
That's
kind
true.
of I'm a Canadian virgin in a way this time.
And Phil, when did the idea for a solo album begin kicking around? Was it on your mind long before Familial?
In terms of doing my own solo material, do you mean? Sorry.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. It's something that kind of... the idea of doing it gained more definition, I'd say, in the kind of the 7 years leading up to the release of Familial. There was something when I first started getting into music and being in bands, I wrote songs at that point, and then when Radiohead was signed, I just wanted to really focus on my drumming. But around my early 30s, I started being drawn back to the whole idea of songwriting again, and bit by bit the ideas came together, and they just reached that point of, there was a collection of songs. I felt, I was trying to figure out how to do them. I knew it wasn't Radiohead material as such, but just so kind of by default, the songs landed at my feet in the end to do, really. It just felt the best way ahead. I mean, and had to learn to sing to do that, and but I'd say, it was about from my early 30s onwards, so kind of the ideas were brewing.
Yeah. And when did you begin compiling the material for Weatherhouse? Was it directly after the first album, or was it sort of later in that 4-year gap?
Well, there are a couple of songs that were around in skeleton form at the same time as Familial. So a song like, say, It Will End in Tears, that was there. I mean, it wasn't fleshed out in any way. I just didn't know what to do with that song when the album was around. But a lot of the songs actually came together when I was writing the lyrics for Familial. I think it's that classic thing. I find that process, I love going through that process, but it's a very intensive and lengthy process for me, and it should be, and I find that it's that classic thing that when you've got something that you feel is quite a weighty task to do, you always find other things to do, like cleaning the kitchen or whatever. And part of that for me was writing other songs as well. So a lot of songs came through in that period. So yeah, the majority of the material came together in that 4-year period as well. And we were out touring, doing a Radiohead tour in 2012. So I was able to use that time to demo material whilst we were out and about and fine-tune it and things like that.
Yeah. And did you find the pressure was eased a bit going into your second album, or was there sort of a self-imposed pressure to sort of top what you had done with Familial?
But going into the second album, there was, I suppose, I had that knowledge that I'd seen the process through once, and I'd been through the cycle of release, going through and touring, and seeing people's reactions to me doing solo work. So, kind of, I suppose I knew more of what I was getting into the second time around, and I had that confidence that actually I'd found a singing voice that worked in the context of the first album, and I felt that I didn't want to necessarily sing it exactly the same way. I mean, very different arrangements on the second album, but I knew that I could develop my vocals throughout that record. So all those things, there was, I suppose, I didn't really feel pressure going in to make Weatherhouse, actually. Coming into it, we'd done the Radiohead tour in 2012, and we'd agreed that, it was a good point to take some time out. So I was coming into 2013, knowing that I had the songs that I wanted to work on, knowing the people that I wanted to work with on this record, which is Radiohead and Quinta, who'd been part of my live band for Familial, and having the time to do it as well. So actually there was this very little sense of pressure. We had, it had good momentum to the sessions, so it didn't drag in any way in that respect. So yeah, I found it quite a liberating experience making this record, actually.
Oh, that's great. And this album, has a much more sort of expansive sound than Familial. Was that always the plan, or was there music you were listening to during the writing and recording that sort of influenced that?
Actually, the record that I was listening to most when I was writing the album, to a certain extent when we were recording, was a very sparsely arranged record, and that was the Mark Hollis of Talk Talk, his solo record.
Okay.
Actually, that didn't really feed into it in terms of arrangements. I think one of the big things for me, it's the musicians that I worked with on this one. So, say Adam and Quinta, and I think for me as well, it was finding my drumming voice on the record. That's kind of one of the first things that went down on the guide tracks, and then so suddenly you just got this bigger, much more expansive platform to build on anyway. And it was a conscious decision as well, because with Familial, that was a very intimate record. I felt that suited my singing voice at that point, and also how the album was written. But I had that sense that, I've been there, I've done that, and for me, doing any kind of solo work, it's kind of trying to find out the different aspects of what I can do musically, and so it made complete sense to me to actually then try something different, different aspects of what I can do.
Hmm. And in some ways, this album does sound closer to Radiohead than Familial. Do you think your drumming sort of influenced that and sort of shaped the sound of that record?
That would be an element in there, I think. That's kind of my I suppose, my recognisable musical voice from Radiohead. So, and I suppose as well on this record, whereas with Familial, I was stepping outside of the Radiohead bubble, and I felt that actually I needed to make something that was very different to that, and that was kind of, making quite a strong definition between the two. I didn't feel that sense so much on this record. I felt, much happier, kind of embracing those kind of musical elements which I love in Radiohead. I felt, if they felt, well, that's a part of me, and that's a part of me that I felt much happier to draw on.
Yeah. And a lot of the reviews that I've read, for this record focus on the lyrics as being dark. Do you think it's a dark record?
I wanted it to be a warm record, and I hopefully that comes across. I think it's a very warm-sounding record.
Definitely.
And I wanted it to be one of those kind of records that you can live in for a while, if you like. Or lose yourself in it a while. Kind of, I love those records that kind of wrap around you, and that's what I wanted Weather House to be. Lyrically, there are darker themes going on there, I suppose. But you have to be. All of these things, you have to be kind of true to type, don't you? And that's part of the thing of developing your own kind of lyrical voice. And for me, I would hope I don't shy away from trickier subjects, but at the same time, I feel that I am quite an optimistic person, and I hope that would come through in the songs as well, and through in the lyrics.
Yeah. So generally, when you're producing and compiling an album, is it really a snapshot of where you are in that moment in time?
It's a snapshot. It's with this record, I suppose it was an opportunity to kind of take stock because I was taking time out of sorts, and so it is a chance to actually sit down and look back. And draw on things which maybe you'd push to the back of your mind because you have to get on with other stuff at that point. And so that can be a very fertile creative ground as well. And so having the chance to dive into that stuff. Also with the sense of feeling that I'm in a good spot as well. So I think that's kind of, the mindset I was in for writing the lyrics.
And listening to the album, it has a really sort of timeless feel to it. Was that something you were working towards in the recording of the record?
I don't know if that's what we were aiming for as such. Okay. You follow your musical instincts, don't you, on these things, and that's where our instincts led us. That's what felt, the arrangements, they didn't feel. We weren't trying to contrive arrangements. We were trying to. Oh, you say that. I mean, kind of the fact that you're arranging. There's an element of contriving there anyway. So you're making decisions. But I think you're trying to follow, I would say, your instinct as much as possible about what would bring out the kind of the true nature of the song, the true, what would frame that song in the best way. So, yes, that's kind of what led the process.
And how does recording solo compare to recording with Radiohead? I mean, you would assume that maybe it's easier and that if you're the main decision maker, but then there's also, I assume, many more decisions that you have to approve and go through in the process at the same time.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, it's there's making Weatherhouse, there's Arden and Quintus, so, there was that kind of collaborative sense of you had your quality filter of 3 people anyway, and I think if you all agree on, it's like in Radiohead, if all 5 of us agree on something there, then you're on to kind of a reasonable decision, and there was that aspect of making Weatherhouse as well. But yes, I mean, ultimately it's kind of got my name on the record, and so that really does benefit from one person having the final say on things and pulling all those different elements together. But that's I've loved doing that. That's been a very healthy process to go through. It's about all of these things, it then kind of feeds back into other projects that you do, be it for me Radiohead or other projects outside that. I think you just make much more informed decisions when you go into those other contexts as well. So, yeah, I would not want to think of myself as a person who would reach a spot and think, oh, this is a good spot, I'm going to stay here, because there's no such thing as standing still. I can't remember what the quote was, but if you think you're standing still, then you're falling behind immediately that you're there. So yes, it's just that whole thing of just keeping everything moving forward musically, personally, on all those strands. And that's what keeps it exciting and hopefully relevant as well.
And speaking of moving forward, I mean, Radiohead were always very forward-thinking in terms of, music distribution. I just wanted to see, how do you feel about the way most people consume new music today, via these streaming services?
Well, as I think of how I listen to music, it's a combination of things. I've found my way back to vinyl a lot, and that feels like the very kind of luxurious end of the spectrum of listening to music. But I've found actually the whole process of streaming as well. It's opened up a much broader musical world for me, or access to a much broader musical world. So I think that the whole streaming process, is inevitably where it feels that music distribution is going, and it's pretty much there, and it's very healthy for allowing access to all of those. I think if you've got an eclectic taste, being able to follow those tastes easily, actually. But the flip side, as a music listener, the flip side is as an artist though as well. And I think the business models within streaming services and how then that pans out to major labels and then eventually trickles back down to the artist. I think that could be better, and I'm not alone in thinking that. As some big stories have testified. So
it's a double-edged sword.
There's always been a double-edged sword, but there's always been that tension in the music industry anyway.
Right.
There's always there's always that friction there between, I suppose, the artist side of it and the business side of it, and it's that constant struggle to find a balance there, really.
Right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time, Philip. Really appreciate it, and really looking forward to seeing you in Montreal next week.
Lovely. Well, I'm really looking forward to playing, actually.
Great.
So thanks, Gabe.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.